Home Improvement not only brought laughter, but also left a lasting impression on audiences with unforgettable characters like Tim the Toolman Taylor and the mysterious neighbor Wilson. But what happened behind the scenes was truly shocking. Rodney Dangerfield died in a coma after heart surgery. Roco had once been entangled in crime before succumbing to illness, and many other actors endured heartbreaking tragedies. Join us as we uncover the truth and honor the legacy they left behind. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's go. Earl Heindman as Wilson W. Wilson, Jr. Do you remember the mysterious neighbor with the familiar hat, kind eyes, and half his face always hidden behind that wooden fence? That was Wilson W. Wilson, Jr., the wise neighbor who always appeared at just the right moment to offer Tim Taylor and his family thoughtful advice. The man who brought this character to life was Earl Heindman, who turned Wilson into an unforgettable television icon when he was 49 years old. Earl Heindman was born on October 20th, 1942 in Bisbee, Arizona, into a humble working-class family. His parents, Eula and Burl Latney Heindman, worked in the oil pipeline industry. From a young age, Earl showed a passion for the arts and went on to study acting at the University of Arizona. It was there that he laid the foundation for a career spanning more than 4 decades on stage and screen. Before becoming Wilson to millions of viewers, Earl Heindman was already familiar to audiences as Bob Reed in Ryan's Hope. He also appeared in a number of well-known films: The Taking of Pelham 123, The Parallax View, Silverado, and 3 Men and a Baby. Notably, Heindman often played villains in thrillers and horror films, quite the opposite of the warm-hearted Wilson that audiences came to love. In 1976, he married Molly McGreevy, a co-star from Ryan's Hope. Their love was simple yet steadfast, lasting 27 years until his death. Molly later left acting to become an Episcopal priest, while Earl quietly continued his artistic contributions. But fate dealt him a cruel challenge: lung cancer. On December 29, 2003, Earl Heindman took his last breath in Stamford, Connecticut, at the age of 61. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at around $2 million, a modest figure compared to the lasting spiritual and cultural legacy he left behind. Dick O'Neill as Art Leonard. In Home Improvement, Art Leonard, the friendly, if sometimes eccentric neighbor, offered audiences humorous and relatable moments. The man who portrayed Art Leonard was Dick O'Neill, who took on the role when he was 70 years old, a veteran actor whose life and career deserve a moment of reflection. Born in New York City on August 29, 1928, Richard Francis O'Neill grew up during a turbulent period in America. His youth was defined by years of service in the Navy, driven by a desire to both protect his country and pursue the stage he so dearly loved. After returning from the military, he began his acting career at the prestigious Arena stage, then moved on to Broadway, and eventually to film and television. Dick once shared that he endured years of grueling auditions and lived frugally in glamorous New York while waiting for his chance at recognition. His private life, too, held quiet sorrow. After his first marriage to Dina Harris ended in heartbreak, he found lasting companionship with Susan Jacqueline "Jackie" Shaw. They met while performing in The Sound of Music and spent nearly 35 years together. Just as his career stabilized and his family life became fulfilling with 3 daughters, Dick faced a silent enemy: heart disease. In his final years, the illness steadily drained his strength. Yet he kept working quietly, serving on the Academy's Film Selection Committee, taking on small roles, and always wearing an optimistic smile to mask the daily pain. Colleagues recalled how Dick remained professional on set, even if he occasionally needed to rest from sheer exhaustion between scenes. On November 17, 1998, Dick O'Neill passed away from heart failure in Santa Monica at the age of 70. His net worth was estimated at around $3 million, a modest figure compared to the spiritual and artistic value he left for the arts. Tom Poston as Ned. Surely you remember Ned, the kind-hearted, somewhat clumsy neighbor who always made audiences laugh with his comical mishaps, right? Though his role was brief, it helped create a fun and engaging story. When he appeared on the show in 1995, Tom Poston was 74 years old, a veteran of American comedy and television with a career spanning nearly half a century. Tom Poston was born in 1921 in Columbus, Ohio. Before finding his calling in the arts, he endured a difficult youth. He served as a pilot who dropped paratroopers during the historic Normandy invasion in World War II and saw combat in North Africa, Italy, France, and England. He rarely spoke of those war years, but they left him with emotional scars that only the stage, laughter, and the love of an audience could soothe. Returning to civilian life, Tom Poston dedicated himself to the arts, becoming one of the most familiar faces on American television. From The Steve Allen Show, which won him an Emmy, to The Bob Newhart Show, Newhart, and many other hit sitcoms, Tom became a symbol of charm, humor, and warmth. Even in his brief appearances as Ned in Home Improvement, he left a lasting impression thanks to the unique spirit he brought to the character. But behind the laughter he shared was a personal life touched by sorrow. Tom went through 3 marriages marked by heartbreak and loss. The greatest pain came when his beloved wife, Kay Hudson, died of ALS, leaving a void that nothing could fill. And when he finally found late-in-life happiness with Suzanne Plachette, his former co-star and soulmate, old age and illness began to wear down his health day by day. In his final years, Tom battled respiratory disease and various age-related health issues that gradually drew him away from the stage, though his heart remained devoted to his craft. On April 30th, 2007, he passed away at the age of 85 in Los Angeles. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $5 million. But the greatest legacy Tom Poston left behind was the laughter and beautiful memories he gave to audiences everywhere. Mickey Jones as Pete Bilker. Amid the cheerful atmosphere of the Taylor family, the image of Pete Bilker, the big-hearted, jovial builder, left a special mark on viewers. When he first played Pete in 1991, Mickey Jones was 50 years old, bringing with him a life full of trials and triumphs. Born in 1941 in Houston, Texas, Mickey Jones had loved music since childhood. His youth was filled with the beat of drums, sleepless nights performing, and the invisible pressure of the big stage. He toured with Bob Dylan during historic years, facing boos and jeers from audiences when Dylan dared to bring electric guitar to the stage. He also witnessed the motorcycle crash that nearly took Dylan's life, a turning point that ended Mickey's music journey and led him down a new path: acting. On screen, Mickey Jones made his mark with roles like Chris Farber, the loyal associate of Ham Tyler in the sci-fi series V, and Brian Tooley O'Toole, the late mysterious mentor of Chris Stevens in the famous Northern Exposure episode Heroes. He brought to his characters a rugged appearance, warm voice, and sincerity that shone through his eyes. But behind those smiles was a life of ups and downs, and quiet sorrows he kept hidden. In his personal life, Mickey was a devoted family man. He shared decades with his wife, Phyllis Jean Starr, raising their children and maintaining a simple home despite the glitz of Hollywood. But even that happiness couldn't keep away the pain as he felt his strength slipping away day by day. Mickey Jones battled diabetes for many years, a long fight that slowly took him away from the spotlight. His struggle with diabetes became a drawn-out ordeal, with his final years tied to hospitals and medication. Mickey died on February 7, 2018, at the age of 76, leaving behind a net worth estimated at around $3 million, the reward for years of dedication to both music and film. Charles Robinson as Bud Harper. When Charles Robinson appeared in Home Improvement in 1995 as Bud Harper, he was 50 years old, carrying not only the experience of a veteran performer, but also the marks of a life filled with struggles and remarkable resilience. As Bud, the strict but responsible manager at Binford Tools, Robinson infused the character with depth, integrity, and lived-in wisdom, reflecting his true self. Born in 1945 in Houston, Texas, Robinson spent his youth amid the upheavals of America. He served in the military before choosing to pursue the arts, starting with stage acting, then moving into television and film. His career truly blossomed with the role of Mac Robinson on Night Court, a character who embodied kindness, integrity, and perseverance. Although he played Bud Harper in only a few episodes of Home Improvement, Charles Robinson left an impression as a principled manager with a compassionate heart. In his personal life, Charles Robinson was known as a family man. He shared a long, steady marriage with Shannon Wilkins, his partner through both his brightest moments and his battles with illness. Together, they raised 2 children, and Robinson always spoke of his family as his greatest source of strength. But behind the stage lights, his life was far from easy. Prostate cancer advanced quietly, and when combined with septic shock and a sudden heart attack, it claimed his life on July 11, 2021. At the age of 75, he passed away, closing the chapter on a life of artistic sacrifice and dedication. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $4 million. Eileen Brennan as Wanda. When Eileen Brennan joined Home Improvement in 1992 as Wanda, she was 60 years old, bringing not only the prestige of an Oscar, Golden Globe, and Emmy nominee, but also the strength of someone who had endured life's deep wounds with resilience. As Wanda, the lovable, quirky neighbor, Brennan gave the character the grace, warmth, and wisdom that reflected her true self. Born in Los Angeles in 1932, Eileen Brennan was raised in an artistic environment from a young age. Her mother had been a silent film actress. She found her calling early on stage in theater and musicals, then rose to Hollywood's spotlight through her natural talent. From The Last Picture Show and Private Benjamin to Clue and Murder by Death, Brennan consistently proved herself to be one of the finest supporting actresses of her generation. She possessed a rare gift for transformation, making audiences burst into laughter and then moments later moving them to silence with emotion. While her career soared, her marriage faltered. Brennan had married British poet and photographer David John Lampson in 1968, and they had 2 sons, Patrick, who became a basketball player before turning to acting, and Sam, a singer. But the marriage ended in separation, leaving Brennan with another heartbreak and the burden of facing health and emotional challenges alone for many years. Behind the acclaim lay a life marked by tragedy. In 1982, Brennan suffered a horrific accident, struck by a car at Venice Beach just after dining with co-star Goldie Hawn. The accident left her severely injured, with a broken leg that sidelined her for 2 years. It also began her long, silent battle with painkiller addiction. As if that weren't enough, in 1989, she fell on stage during a performance of Annie, worsening her old injuries. In 1990, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, beginning a painful and hopeful journey through treatment. Despite everything, Brennan continued contributing to the arts until the end of her life, with memorable TV roles in Will and Grace, Seventh Heaven, and many other shows. On July 28, 2013, Eileen Brennan passed away at her home in Burbank, California, after a fierce fight with bladder cancer. She was 80 years old. Her net worth at the time of her passing was estimated at around $5 million, the result of a lifetime devoted to film, theater, and television. Rodney Dangerfield as himself. At 76 years old, when Rodney Dangerfield made his cameo appearance in Home Improvement as himself, he brought not just his signature brand of laughter, but also the aura of a legend. The moment audiences heard, "I don't get no respect," they recognized him instantly. The baggy suit, red tie, weary eyes, and self-deprecating lines laced with bitterness. But few knew that behind that image lay a lifetime of unspoken sorrow. Born Jacob Cohen in 1921 in New York, Rodney grew up in a home lacking love. His entertainer father was rarely home, and his mother was so cold and distant that Rodney once said, My mother never hugged me, never kissed me, never said she loved me. Even worse, as a child, he suffered abuse at the hands of a predatory neighbor. Rodney's path to comedy was as rocky as his childhood. At one point, he left show business to sell aluminum siding to support his wife and children, later joking bitterly, "I quit showbiz, and nobody even knew I was gone." But his passion for the stage drew him back. With his disheveled look and stories of the man who never got any respect, Rodney won over America, from Las Vegas stages to films like Caddyshack, Back to School, and Easy Money. But behind the laughter he gave others were sleepless nights, wrestling with depression, loneliness, and the ghosts of his childhood. He turned to marijuana as a form of self-healing, using it for nearly 60 years. In his final years, illness struck relentlessly. Heart surgery, brain surgery, strokes, and a deep coma. Yet even before surgery, Rodney kept his wit. "If all goes well, I'll be in the hospital a week. If not, about an hour and a half." He sought stability, but rarely found it. Twice married to Joyce Indig, with whom he had 2 children, Rodney's family life was turbulent. Only at the end, with his 3rd wife, Joan Child, did he find the peace he had long craved. On October 5, 2004, Rodney Dangerfield passed away from complications after heart surgery, closing a life of 82 years filled with glory, but shadowed by sorrow. His net worth at the time was about $20 million. Anne Morgan Gilbert as Wilson's mother. It was no coincidence that whenever Anne Morgan Gilbert appeared on screen, even in small roles like Wilson's mother in Home Improvement at age 65, she left an unforgettable impression. Behind that gentle smile and knowing eyes was a life lit by stage lights, but also marked by silent struggles few knew about. Born in 1928 in Minneapolis and raised in an intellectual family, Anne fell in love with the stage early on. But her journey to the spotlight was never easy. After studying at Stanford and working in musical programs, she fought to make a name for herself at a time when Hollywood offered few chances to women beyond their 20s. Yet Anne never backed down. With natural talent and unwavering determination, she won over American audiences as the charming Millie Helper in The Dick Van Dyke Show, and later as the lovable but eccentric Grandma Yetta in The Nanny. Her private life, however, was often unsteady. Her first marriage to writer George Eckstein lasted 15 years and left her raising 2 daughters with all her heart. It took years before she found peace with her second husband, actor Guy Raymond, only to lose him to death and face old age alone. When cancer silently crept into her life, Anne once again gathered her strength, just as she had with every storm she had weathered. In every role, Anne shared her heart and her real-life experiences. Whether in comedy or guest appearances on Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Law and Order, SVU, she left a deep mark as a woman both sharp and kind, vulnerable enough to feel relatable, strong enough to inspire admiration. On June 14, 2016, Anne Morgan Gilbert passed away in Los Angeles after a long battle with cancer. She was 87. Her net worth was estimated at about $3 million, but her true legacy was the performances, the laughter, and the moments that audiences will never forget. Ernest Borine as Eddie Phillips. Few faces on screen command respect the moment they appear, even for just a few seconds, quite like Ernest Borine. When he was 75 years old, he took on the role of Eddie Phillips in Home Improvement, and audiences saw not only a simple, humorous character, but also the depth of a living legend. Behind that warm smile, sharp eyes, and deep, gentle voice lay a life filled with glory, but also marked by many ups and downs. Born into an Italian immigrant family in Connecticut, Ernest experienced an incomplete childhood when his parents separated when he was just 2 years old. He and his mother moved to Italy, where he lived without his father for nearly 5 years. Returning to the U.S., Borine soon faced the harsh struggle to survive before finding a home in the Navy for nearly a decade, sailing through the perils of World War II and facing death at close range, experiences that later infused his roles with the grit and authenticity of a soldier's soul. If his private life could be summed up in one word, it would surely be pain. He married and divorced 4 times, including a famously brief union with star Ethel Merman that lasted just 32 days, one of Hollywood's shortest and most turbulent marriages. The fierce arguments and clashing personalities turned their home into a battlefield, and Borine once joked in self-deprecation, "Me and Ethel, 2 bombs in the same room. It was bound to explode." Yet amid that chaos, Borine stood tall, continuing to give his all to his craft. He embraced every kind of role, from hero to villain to fiery old man, just as he was in life. Even in his twilight years, Ernest appeared regularly on screen, from SpongeBob SquarePants to ER and Touched by an Angel, not for money, but for love of the profession. He once said, "The audience gives me respect, and that's what I treasure most in life." Ernest Borine passed away in 2012 at the age of 95 after a long battle with aging and kidney failure. His net worth was estimated at around $15 million, but the greatest value he left behind cannot be measured. Characters that live on in the hearts of audiences, and an indomitable spirit that met life's storms with optimism and resilience. Alex Roco as Shatter. When Alex Roco stepped onto the small screen in the hit sitcom Home Improvement in 1997 at 61 years old, he brought with him a lifetime of turbulence and indelible marks. In the show, he played Shatter, a minor but memorable character who embodied the friendly, experienced type of person viewers might meet in real life. But behind that kind smile and signature gravelly voice lay a stormy past, a life once steeped in darkness and tragedy. Before coming to Hollywood, Alex Roco, born Alessandro Petricone Jr., was linked to the bloody underworld of Boston's organized crime, nearly swallowed by violence and prison. As a young man, he became entangled in gang-related crimes, even suspected of involvement in a murder during a notorious gang war. These events forced him to leave everything behind, flipping a coin to decide. Heads, he'd go to Miami, tails, to California, and starting over with nothing. From a man who once lived on the edge between good and evil, Alex Roco remade himself into a true artist. He began with acting classes, shed his heavy Boston accent, and poured all his pain and experience into his performances. That's what made his portrayal of Moe Greene in The Godfather, 1972, iconic. A villain whose soul echoed Roco's own life. Behind the spotlight were final years marred by the agony of pancreatic cancer, compounded by the loss of his beloved wife Sandy to cancer before him. But above all, Alex Roco lived a remarkable life, from sin to redemption, from shadow into light, leaving behind an artistic legacy valued at about $5 million and a legend of extraordinary strength of spirit. Ann Miller as Mrs. Keany. When Ann Miller appeared on Home Improvement in 1993 at 70 years old, she dazzled the set and television viewers alike as Mrs. Keany, a stylish, humorous woman whose polished surface concealed the depth of a life hard-lived. At an age when many of her peers had faded into the past, Ann Miller still shone like a proud star, bringing with her both the brilliant glow of Hollywood's golden age and the scars of life's harshest trials. Born in 1923 in Houston, Texas, Ann, whose birth name was Johnny Lucille Collier, tasted loneliness and hardship early on. As a child, she battled rickets, which left her legs weak and required dance to rebuild her strength. But tragedy didn't stop there. When she was 9, her parents divorced after her father's infidelity, leaving Ann and her deaf mother struggling to survive in Los Angeles. With a face that looked older than her years, Ann falsified her age to dance in nightclubs, earning money to support her mother by the time she was just 13. Her marriages were filled with sorrow. Her first, to millionaire Reese Llewellyn Milner, began like a dream but ended in horror. While pregnant, Anne was beaten and pushed down a flight of stairs, causing a broken back and premature birth. Their baby girl, Mary, lived only 3 hours in Anne's arms. That loss haunted her forever, and she filed for divorce immediately. Later marriages to William Moss, 1958 to 1961, and Arthur Cameron, 1961 to 1962, also ended in heartbreak, with allegations of abuse and betrayal. Between these unions were romances with powerful men like Howard Hughes and Conrad Hilton. In her later years, Anne faced her final adversary, lung cancer. She fought bravely, but the disease claimed her in 2004 at 80 years old. Until the end, Anne remained a vivid symbol of proud resilience, a Hollywood star who burned bright despite the darkest tragedies of life. Alan Fudge as Felix Mman. At 47 years old, in 1991, Alan Fudge appeared in Home Improvement as Felix Mman, a slightly eccentric but well-meaning neighbor who contributed to the show's warm and humorous moments alongside the main character, Tim Taylor. Though a supporting role, Fudge made a lasting impression with his sincere acting and approachable style, qualities that reflected the real man behind the character. Born on February 27, 1944, in Wichita, Kansas, Alan Fudge faced a challenging childhood when his family moved to Tucson, Arizona, when he was just 5 years old. In those early years, while other children played games, Alan found comfort on the stage at the Mary McMurtry Children's Theater and later at the Tucson Little Theater. That passion helped him overcome the loneliness of a young boy in a new place and nurtured a sensitive spirit and a longing to give back through art. Alan's artistic path was not without its struggles. He was the final contender for the role of B.J. Honeycutt in MASH, a role that ultimately went to Mike Farrell, but Fudge didn't let this discourage him. Instead, he left his mark with a haunting guest appearance as the soldier who believed himself to be Jesus Christ in the episode Quo Vadis, Captain Chandler, a performance that earned a Humanitas Prize nomination and showed the emotional depth he brought to every character. His career spanned film, television, and stage, from Airport 1975, Edward Scissorhands, The Natural, to dozens of Broadway productions like Hamlet, The Cherry Orchard, You Can't Take It With You. But behind the spotlight, Alan quietly battled illness. In his final years, he fought both lung and liver cancer. Even so, Alan found peace at home with his wife, Mimi Green, who stood by him through all of life's ups and downs. Together, they raised 6 children, who became his greatest source of strength, especially in those final days when disease took its toll. But fate had its way. Alan passed away in 2011 in Los Angeles at the age of 67, after losing his battle with illness. His net worth was estimated at around $3 million, the result of a lifetime of tireless dedication on stage and screen. Connie Sawyer as Old Lady. In 1995, at the age of 83, Connie Sawyer delighted Home Improvement viewers in her role as the Old Lady, a funny, slightly quirky, but warm-hearted elderly woman who embodied charm and a kind of comedic grace few could match. Appearing alongside Tim Allen, Connie brought gentle humor and familiarity that only someone who had lived through nearly a century of life's ups and downs could convey. Connie Sawyer's life was like a long film, filled with both hardships and shining moments. Born on November 27, 1912, in Pueblo, Colorado, to an Orthodox Jewish family of Romanian heritage, Connie understood struggle from an early age. When she was 7, her family moved to Oakland, California, to make ends meet during difficult times. Her father opened a small shop, but it was her mother's love of the arts that sparked young Rosie Cohen's, Connie's birth name, passion for the stage. Her childhood was filled with memories of singing and dancing contests, where she earned stacks of pancakes as her first reward in show business, something she always recalled with pride and emotion. Connie's career spanned 85 years and over 140 films and TV shows, from When Harry Met Sally, Seinfeld, Boy Meets World, to Pineapple Express. She was affectionately called the Clown Princess of Comedy, a nickname that honored both her talent and subtle charm. But behind the stage lights were loneliness and challenges. Her only marriage, to film distributor Marshall Shacker, lasted 10 years and ended in separation, leaving Connie to raise their two beloved daughters, Lisa and Julie, who became her pillars in later years. Even at 105, Connie kept working, appearing in NCIS, Los Angeles, New Girl, and publishing her memoir at age 105 titled I Never Wanted to Be a Star, and I Didn't Want to. It was a humble reminder from someone who spent her life giving without seeking fame. Sadly, Connie passed away on January 21, 2018, from a heart attack. Her net worth was estimated at around $3 million, the fruit of a life of hard work, humility, and resilience. The tragic fates of these stars leave us with an unshakable sense of loss. Which performance touched you the most, and which hidden story surprised you? Share your thoughts and join us in discovering more of the stories behind the spotlight.